So in this video, we're going to be showcasing an invoice doc, and we're going to be going over how I made it, how to actually use it, and kind of the behind the scenes stuff that makes it all work. There's several parts to the invoice doc. Right now we have it connecting to a projects area. Within our projects, we can have clients, we can have multiple different invoices, and then at the end we can actually print or create a PDF of an invoice that actually looks really nice that we can send to clients. You can see it here. It can have all of the billing info of the client, all of your personal info for your business or your company. It can have invoice dates, payment dates that are due, and then all of the line items that you have within your project. And it'll calculate it all within the subtotal, any discounts that you add, any applicable tax. You can set tax rates, and then we can have a final total with any notes at the bottom. So it's pretty cool. Let's look at how to actually use the document. So within our projects, the way that I based everything is off of projects. And so say you're working with a new client, first thing we're gonna do is create a new project. So in this case, let's do a sample project, and let's do this based off of like a web design project. So we're just gonna call this web design. If we want to, at the top, we can add our own image here. So I'm just gonna look up internet and see what's cool. Okay, this is good. We can give an overview for what the project is actually gonna be. Let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's say the client wants a logo, they want a home page, landing page, and then let's say they want 4 article pages. Okay, so let's say this is the scope of the project that we're going to be doing. We can assign a due date. Let's just say this is due in a week. Let's say we want to pick a client. In this case, we haven't added the client to our client database, so let's go ahead and create a new one. Let's say their name was Todd Howard. What we can do is we can type the name in, and even if it's not in our database, we can go ahead and create a new one. So let's actually create him, and let's actually add his info real quick. So the way we can get that, we can either close out of here and go into our clients, or within our project, with the one we just made, we can actually hover over the name and then click on the section up here. So within here, we can fill out the customer's info. This will be helpful so that we can actually bill it to the correct person and have like an accurate email address, an accurate phone number, and then accurate street addresses. So let's just enter in some fake info. So we have all the customer's info in. We're done with this, so we can go back. Here we have the total project cost. This is based on everything that's a billable item. And so let's actually add some billable items. And what we can do, say our client wants to pay in 2 parts. He wants to do maybe half up front and then half at the end. So what we could do is we could just bill half of our items now and then half of our items later. And there's a bunch of different ways that you can actually structure this. It all depends on how you want to structure your invoice. But in this case, I'm going to create a line item for each of the items we outlined in our overview. So we'll have one here. This one will be our logo. We'll have another one that will be our home page. Say we charge a little bit more for the home and landing pages compared to the article pages, since maybe the articles are like templates. So we'll just say this will be landing page, and then we'll do an article page. So let's fill out the information. You can add descriptions. I'm probably not going to add one. For a logo, there's only going to be one logo. And let's say we're going to charge $200 for the logo. We have our tax, and there's actually a specific section where you can set the default tax rate. For now, I just have it to a random 7.2%, just to kind of get the idea of how it works. In the home page, let's say we're going to charge $150. Let's say $150 for the landing. And then for the article, since we're actually doing 4 pages, we can say 4 there. And let's charge $100 per article page. Cool. So now we have all of our prices in, and you can see here at the top, we have our total project cost. And so this is accumulating the final price after tax and giving you the final number up there. And of course, we can see we have a simple formula for tax here. So it's getting where we have the 7.2% for tax, and then it's getting 7.2% of 200, and then adding that to the price column and creating the amount column. I have a simple conditional format here, which the greener it is, the more expensive it is, and then the less green, the less expensive. So we have our billable items here. So this is all good. Now say we wanted to create an invoice, right? And we said we wanted to have 2 invoices, maybe one invoice with half of the items and then another invoice with the other half of the items later on. So how would we do that? Well, we have an invoices section here. So we're going to create a new card. You'll see it'll automatically generate an invoice number. The invoice date is based on whenever you create it, but we can always change this. So say we were going to bill it this Saturday. We can bill to Todd Howard, and this is just it's grabbing the name from the project, but we can always change this if we need. We're going to say invoice is due tomorrow. By default, it's going to be unpaid. And then I have a attached paid receipt. So whenever they do actually pay it, we can attach it here for proof. But down below, we can select our billable items. And so any of the items that we created in our project are going to be available here. So we can see those 4 items, the 4 line items that we created. Let's just say the logo and the homepage for now. And we're going to see them populate here. So if we need to edit any of the info, maybe add some descriptions, we can do all that here. In this case, it should be good to go. Down below, we have a discount and then discount type, and then it'll give the total here. So let's say if you had 4 article pages, we'd give like say a 15% discount. What we could do is we could go into discount. We can say 15, and we can see what type of discount we want. So by default, it's set to no discount, but we can do either a percentage or a dollar amount. So if we did a percentage, it would get the discount percent of all of these items and then give you the discount total here. And we'll see at the top, this is actually the final total of the invoice. And so this is including with the discount and all of that. So let's see, to get back to it, we can just go into the web design. We'll see the invoice that we created here. We'll just go back into that. So let's say, like if we did 10%, you'll see it change at the top accordingly. Let's say we just wanted $10. So we can just keep this as 10 and then this is dollars. So our discount is $10. And it's just taking the final amount and then giving us our result. The cool thing with the percent is that it actually gets it before tax. So you're not doing the percentage after tax, it's all before tax. But all of this is good. We can see the related project that this is associated to. And if we wanted to add any invoice notes, we can do that here. I'm probably just going to leave that alone. But now we have our final invoice. And so say we wanted to send this in an email and we just needed a PDF to do that. All we would do is go to the bottom. We have the generate invoice button. So if we click this will take us to our invoice page. And what we can do is just do a simple Control P to print. And we can see the view here. Let's actually take a look at how this formatted everything. So you can see our invoice date, payment due, all of the bill to for the address, the company name or the person's name. We can see all of my info, this is just random information that I've compiled. We can see all the line items that we've added to our invoice and then all of the associated totals. And if I had any notes, that would appear here. But all of this stuff is using a simple lookup control, and all of this info is based on the lookup control. So right now we're on invoice 50, but if I wanted to go to another invoice, you'd see all of the info actually changes to show all of the relevant info for that specific invoice. In this case, whenever I push the button for invoice number 50, it just took me to this page and set the lookup control to the appropriate one that I was just on. So, and if we went to the print screen, it actually formats it a lot nicer than how it was before. And I've perfectly adjusted the table with all the list items so that it fills the page without ever overshooting the page. But it looks real nice. And we can save this as a PDF, or we can print this and send it just like a formal looking invoice, which is nice. So let's go back to the original design project. Here we have 4 items, but we only built 2. So what we can do is create another invoice for that. So we'll create a new card. Here you'll see it automatically generated the next invoice number. All this info is good. We're gonna say this is due the week after our previous invoice. And here we can select our billable items. But you'll see, originally in our project we had 4, but because we had 2 of the other billable items on the other invoice, they're not going to show here. And I did that just so multiple items weren't accidentally billed twice. And so this is just going to show us the ones that we have left that haven't been billed. So we can just select both of those. If we wanted to add another discount here, we could do that. We'll just say another $10 discount. We can add our notes. We can click the make PDF since we're done with this. And here we go. We have another fully ready PDF, which is nice. Let's say in a week, whenever the time goes by, they end up paying it. We can just go back into our invoices. We have a dedicated invoice page here, or we can go back to our projects, go back to the web design, and then click on whatever invoice that we want. But we can mark this as paid. And you'll see once we do that, it'll change the invoice to be green. And that way we can just look at it and we know anything that's red is going to be something that's unpaid, and then anything that's green is going to be paid. But we have a full archive here, and like I have this field for us to upload the file once they've actually paid, like the proof of payment. But other than that, that's the general feel of how everything works. I want to go a little bit into how it was made and the tables that are used to actually make all this function. I have 4 tables in total that are powering everything. I have a projects database. This is the project that holds a lot of the info that's referenced. I have the invoice database. I have the client, and then the billable items. And all of these are connected together using lookup columns, of course. So we can see here in the projects database, let me actually make this a wide page. So if we look at this, I believe there's only 1 row that's hidden. We can unhide that. I have this simple group row. That way it groups items at the top. You'll see how it says it's grouped by projects. The reason I do this is because whenever you're using a doc on an iPad, which I tend to use for a lot of the Coda stuff that I build, it, for some reason, for all of your gallery items, it does it just 1 gallery wide. But if you group them, then it does it 4 wide. It's kind of a weird thing, but that's why I have it grouped there. So that column really doesn't do much. But other than that, these are all the columns that are powering the projects. And so it's a simple title column. I have an image column for the thumbnail, overview, due date. The client is a lookup column that's looking up to our client's database. Total project cost is a formula. So if we look at the formula here, what we're doing is we're getting all of the billable items that are associated with the billable items column. We're getting the amount. So if I scroll over, we're getting our final amount for each of our items that are in this. And then we're getting the sum of them. So we have 3 items, and then the sum column sums all of those 3 amounts that are in the amounts column, and then just adding them together. And that's how we get the $1,011.95. Going down to the billable items, this is simply a lookup column, and I believe we're doing a little format, or a little formula here. So if we click here, edit the formula, this is the formula that I'm using to look up to the billable items. So we're going to the billable items database, we're filtering by if the related project column in the billable items database is equal to this row, since this row is itself a project. So we can actually close out of this and go to the billable items database. Here we have our related project column. And so with that filter enabled on the projects database, if I add a new column, we'll just call this a test row. Maybe. Test row. So if we go back to the billable items, we'll see in this test row that are automatically assigned the related project. And it makes it nice just so we don't have to manually input things. Where were we? Here we are. Okay. Here we can always right click and delete any rows that we don't want. We can delete this everywhere. But any rows that we'd make here are only going to be associated with the project that it's in. So if you make another row, it's not going to add it to a different project. You can always manually change it later, but the way that I have it set up now, any rows that you make inside of the project view are only going to be associated with this project, and they're only going to be made available to the invoices within that specific project. But with all of this, we can go over the billable items once we get to that database, but this is all done. The invoices are a similar story, except they're in card view. But if we, let's see, if we open this up, I just have a formula that's also relating it by if it's the related project. So if the invoice database is being filtered by if the related project column inside the invoice database is equal to this row. And anytime that we create a new invoice, it's going to be associated with this project. So that's pretty much all of the columns that make up the project database. If we go into the invoice database, we can see how this was made. Let's actually make this widescreen as well. So in here, let me make sure no columns are hidden. Nope. So here we have our title, we have our total amount. And so this is just the grand total for everything that's in the billable items. It takes into account all of the discounts, any of the tax, all of that. We have just a simple date column for the payment due. We have just a select list column for whether it's paid or it's unpaid. Here we just have a file attachment column for the attached paid receipt. The bill to is a lookup column that's looking up to our clients here. So this by default has a starting value. And so what I'm doing here is doing an if function. So if the related project is not blank, and so you can create an invoice outside of your project, which is fine. But this is just saying that if it's not blank, we can grab the client that's within the related project. But if it is blank, then we're just going to have a blank value in. But the filter that it's doing if there is an associated project is we're going to the client's database and we're filtering it by if it has the same project as the invoice, and we're looking at the person column. So it's getting the same person that's in our related project and just setting it here, just for ease of use. So here, all of our billable items here are dependent on whatever project we're on. So I believe this was the one we created. So all of the items that are within this project are going to be the ones that we can select. And like I said, if we have multiple invoices per project, then it's only going to show the billable items that haven't already been invoiced. That way there can be no duplicates. This was a little complicated with all the discounts. So the discount total is quite a long formula. So essentially we're switching based on whatever the selection for the discount type is. So there's three discount types. We can have no discount, the percent discount, or the dollar amount discount. And so what we're doing is we're doing a switch if. A switch if is basically if this value is true, do this. If this value is true, do this, and so on. It's different in the if statement, where if it was just an if statement, it would be if this condition is true, do this, but if it's not, do that. And there can only be one condition, whereas a switch if, there can be multiple conditions. And instead of it being like a if yes, if no, it's just an if yes. So if this condition, then this. but if this condition, then this, if that makes sense. So I have 3 of those happening. So I'm saying if discount type equals the %, then I'm going to figure out how to get the percentage from that and add it to the total. If the discount type is the dollar amount, then I'm just going to get the dollar amount for that I type in. And then if there is no discount, then we're just saying it's going to be a 0. And that's what's making up the discount total. For the notes, this is just a simple text column, and then the related project is automatically made whenever you make the invoice. If you make the invoice outside of the related project, then you can always reassign it or assign it here. I have a button here. This will just open the related project. And then the make PDF invoice, if I can open up the magic here, this is just running a few actions. So we're running 2 different actions. This is like the same thing as having a push multiple buttons, except instead of having multiple buttons, I'm just kind of programming those buttons into the formula field. So this is running the action to set the control value of the, oh gosh, how do I get out of this? It's stuck. This is setting the control value in here. And so this control value is called printable invoice home select invoice. And this is just setting this to a predefined value. So essentially what it's saying is whenever this button is pushed, to change that lookup control to be this row. And then once we're done running that action, we're going to go to the page. And this link just goes to the printable page here. Other than that, that's about it for that button. And I already went over this a little bit, but all of this info, if we click on the formulas that are created here, all of these are formulas, including this, including all of this, and then the grand total. All of it is just a formula that's looking at different columns that are associated with our invoice. And so this is basically a full-fledged invoice view. It just doesn't look like it. So this is the same as looking at all of this, except it's just condensed in a select. And we can reference that by saying like, okay, I want to look at this control, whatever it's set on, and then we can go into the columns that are associated with this control. And that's how, like, whenever I change this to something else, that's why all of the info changes. If we go into our client database, this is pretty simple. This is just looking at any related invoices and then their personal info. So that way, all of this stuff will populate the printable invoice and like the bill to information here. These related invoices are just a formula to look up in the invoice database. And then we're just doing invoice database and filtering it so that if the billed to person is equal to this row, which this row is the client database and the specific client within that. Then we have our billable items. And so all of these are what's added in the projects that we can bill people for. We can see we just have the item name, the description, number column for the quantity, the price. Then we have a % column for the tax. We have a total amount. And so this is figuring out the price times the quantity, getting the raw amount for that, and then getting the price times the quantity amount and then multiplying the tax. And then we're just adding that together to get the final total. We have the related project that each billable item is related to. I have some extra columns. They're used specifically to get, I think, the column in the total area down here. So they're really only used to help formulate this, I believe, to help formulate some other totals. Where were we? Here we are. But this is just figuring out like the amount in tax and then the amount before tax. That way it makes it easier to just add these together to get like the amount. And then we have whatever invoice the billable item was attached to. And this helps make it so that we can't assign it to multiple invoices. And so it's filtered here. So this is just if the invoice contains this row in the select billable items area. And I actually have, if we go into the invoice database, the filter that I have that stops us from selecting multiple of the same invoice is, I believe, in here. So if we go to lookup options, we can actually change the filter in the drop down. So if I X out of these, you can see we can filter 2 of those. And the way that's stopping the other 2 from showing is in the option settings. We can see we have a custom filter within our drop-down settings so that if the related project equals this, and if the invoiced on column is blank. So if it's attached to another invoice, since it's not blank anymore, it doesn't match this criteria. But other than that, that's about a good overview. All of these are just looking at each other with lookup columns, and it's all being filtered in a specific way and giving us this specific format that we can print for clients. And yeah, we can track everything within our project view. The project view is more basic, just a demo of how we could really interact with different invoices and different billable items. But pretty much with this, we can get everything started. Like we can create graphs if we wanted to see what clients were the most valuable, to see whatever invoices were attached to them. We can do a bunch of stuff, but yeah, I believe that's about it. This is a good overview for how to do invoices. Thank you for watching.